Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to DigitalB's LinkedIn Live for this week, where we're going to be talking about the what's been going on in marketing and what impact that needs to have on your strategy. And today I'm delighted to be joined by the lovely Edwina. So welcome.
Hi, everyone.
It's a hot day today, so we're not. We know that you all probably want to be sat out in the garden. Maybe sat in the garden watching us now. Hopefully you are. But we know that it's a hot day, and let's face it, everybody's talking about football. So we're going to kick off, obviously, excuse the pun. We're going to kick off by thinking about the football and the impact it might have. So over to you, Edwina. What do you think?
Yeah, you're quite right. It is hot and everyone is tired. Heat and tiredness are not a brilliant match. But how good was the match? I don't know if everyone did the same as me and woke up at just before 1 o'clock, saw the news and went, oh, I'm going to try and get another hour in, or whether people just powered on through. But yeah, it's an interesting one across the nation today. We're going to have a load of tired people coming into the office, but very interesting. Online viewing records broken. I mean, there have been a few broken records across, broken records, sound like a broken record, but there have been in the US, the highest watched numbers in games ever, which is amazing because football, as you know, is on the increase. So that's a wonderful thing for them and for the game over there. Over here.
I think you mean soccer.
I'm not referring to American football, I'm talking to the proper football. But over here, controversial. I'm assuming most of our listeners and viewers are in Europe. But yeah, it's been really interesting, and the number of people viewing on a mobile the games has gone up exponentially, and BBC have done incredibly well. The viewing counts have gone up something like 145% since the last World Cup. So it's been brilliant. Been interesting for the networks who don't usually have to worry about high internet usage between 2 and 4 in the morning. So there's lots of comparisons coming out, data comparisons of what the internet usage should be. There's obviously during a day there's ups and downs, but the sort of lowest trough of internet usage in a day is 5 a.m. So normally we're seeing it going down from 1 a.m. to 5 a.m. and then start coming back up again as the 5 a.m. clubs wake up, and then every normal person, afterwards. But yes, this morning it was very different. So there's going to be plenty of analysis coming out around productivity this week because of people being tired and people being hot. So that's going to be interesting when it comes to working out what you're focusing on for your marketing when you know people aren't really concentrating.
Yeah, and obviously we are, all the indicators are that we're going into another heat wave, possibly not quite as hot as we had a couple of weeks ago, but certainly heading into another heat wave, which I think affects everything, doesn't it? Because I know we talk about this a lot in good old Great Britain, but it does affect us because we're not used to it. Our houses are insulated in a different way than they are in the Mediterranean. My house is designed to keep heat in. It is not designed to repel it and to keep it cool. I do not have marble floors. I don't have tiles everywhere. I've got carpets which retain heat, and I've got really good insulation for the winters, which means that my house becomes a little oven at night. But it does have an impact. But I think it has an impact not just on those of us who have to deliver marketing, but it also has an impact on how we consume content as well. And I think what's interesting, obviously, is particularly around the football and the media and the watch media and those kinds of things, is obviously we need to factor in that time difference. So yes, everyone who's up early in the morning who wouldn't have been, but also does that affect how we watch it? Because I know a lot of people who would have watched it communally who were probably laid in bed watching it at 2 o'clock this morning. I'll be honest, I woke up to the score. I love England, but I'm not. After the weekend that I've had, I definitely wasn't up for being up in the early hours. But one of my sons got up and watched it in bed, on his phone. So does that have an impact? And we need to kind of think about those things as well. Or is that a permanent difference? Who knows? The other thing that I think is really interesting, though, is I think this is a classic example of where you could have the best possible planned marketing campaign in the world, but if everybody's attention is diverted somewhere else, it doesn't matter how good it is. Our attention at the moment is heavily diverted by news around the football, around all of those things. have the BBC News app, every single alert that was coming in, apart from a little bit about Prince Harry, which let's not get into that one, but apart from a little bit about Prince Harry and the current argument at Buckingham Palace, everything was about football. It was about there was a couple of really nice stories about where schools had opened up their doors a little bit earlier for the kids to go and watch it together as a school, rather than being kept up late to watch it, which is obviously what would have probably happened if not. So it was almost like everybody, they were on a news ban, phones were banned, nobody was allowed to look at the news to see whether they'd won or not. So there's but there's so much news. Our attention's diverted by it. Our attention's going to switch then to the next match, what's happening, who's going to be in the lineup, who's going to, all of those things that are going to be coming out. You could have the most perfectly executed marketing plan in the world, but it's bad timing, isn't it, if you put it out now?
Yeah, and there are a couple of things there I'd like to draw out, actually, because when it comes to adjusting a business plan or marketing plan, you're spot on. And it may be that you've got a plan and a schedule of content that's going to be published this week. Actually, you might need to take a break and go, it's not going to land the way that it was planned to land. Yeah. Or indeed, it might actually land better based on whatever product or service that you're promoting. So you just need to be a bit more conscious this week about if you're going to waste content or optimize it by publishing this week. And again, on the mobile usage, I think that's really interesting when it comes to sponsorship, because the sponsorship packages, if you're going to have your branding on the side of stadium or pitch side, you didn't need to work too hard to get good visibility when everyone was watching it on a big screen or on a normal size TV screen. When you're watching it this big, you really need to focus on 2 colors maximum, larger fonts, all of that kind of stuff. So we may feel that football is quite far away sometimes from some of the brands that like to follow us on DigitalB, but actually those kind of practices we need to be considerate of, in plenty of different arenas.
Yeah, and I think it is always interesting one in terms of how do we react to it? And it's very easy, I think, to become dragged into it as a trend. So we should be talking about it. Let's be all over it. Everyone's talking about it. Let's do it. But actually, if it doesn't fit your brand, don't do it. You don't have to be involved in all of the conversations. Yes, you can show that you're a supporter of England. Of course you can. But there are some that I think are better than others. And somebody we've had a comment from Rick, who said, I've seen a few own goals with the football related marketing too, like Greg's removing all the Mexican chicken boast products, etc. So you do have to plan carefully. How are we going to react to it? What is that impact if we do those things? What is the bigger picture? It's very easy when we're, particularly I think when you're focused on a particular campaign or a particular product or a particular service, it's very easy to go and to wear blinkers and forget that actually, no matter what you do, no matter how much you shout, if there's a much bigger noise going on somewhere else, you've lost that battle already, haven't you?
Yeah, absolutely. And things don't really change in terms of what we were looking at last World Cup and with the Women's World Cup, obviously, as well, in terms of user numbers of how people are behaving around different brands. But everything is far more pinpointed. So it's like everyone's more laser focused on in a less granular way. I mean, explaining it if you know what I mean. So what we were saying 4 years ago and is basically magnified this time. Viewer numbers are much higher. Mobile viewer numbers are much higher. People are laser focused on one thing only and can't think left or right. And that really does, that kind of polarization of topic. You're right. It does really affect us all as in marketing. I love the Greg's example of removing the Mexican products. I think that's hilarious. And that football banter that is around any competition, that's what I live for. That's really good human community-based communication.
Yeah. We I have to say we had a festival bar out at the weekend and we were selling margaritas and tequila like you wouldn't believe. So I'm happy with that. I don't think people did it in support of Mexico, but it was definitely very popular. Equally, though, we had no internet access at all, so there's no effect. And I do think that's really interesting as well, because we were literally off grid for a few days and then came back to a very big England for Raw, obviously, after with the match and all of those events around it. But yeah, I definitely wasn't going to restrict my tequila and margarita sales.
So you know your audience.
Yeah, absolutely. Although we are thinking about introducing a spicy margarita, but that's another conversation entirely. But yeah, I think. Yeah, I think, but let's be honest, over the next week or so, and if England go on, and hopefully they will, but that next week or so, we're going to be concentrated in the UK. If your audience is UK based in particular, it's going to be football and the weather. Our two favourite things to talk about, probably, let's be honest. But if you can join in that conversation and you can do it naturally as part of your brand and as part of what you do, fantastic. If you can't, don't force it though, because I think sometimes those forced conversations in marketing we know that they don't work, and they can be quite damaging as well, can't they, really?
Yeah, same as jumping on the bandwagon of any trend. You've got to make sure it's right for your brand. You've got to make sure you can do it in a way that doesn't feel forced, and that people aren't going to go, oh, they're just trying a bit hard. It does have to feel natural. And if you don't have the staff that follow football and you don't care about football, it's going to come across in whatever you produce. Because you always it always goes back to trust and authenticity, doesn't it? And and you can play around with your brand tone of voice around these kind of events, but only so much. You can skew a little bit that way or a little bit that way, but you've got to stay true to who you are as a brand.
Yeah, and I think in terms of marketing in general, when we're looking at search, social media, and we're looking at all of those updates, and our updates for what happened last month, you can view it on the website now. But when you're looking at all of those things, there is still that thread that runs through it, isn't it? That it is authenticity. Yes, we live in an AI, can't even say it today, AI world. Yes, we know that there is a lot of AI generated content out there, but we're still craving that authenticity, and we're still craving the reality of those proper, authentic, genuine conversations, and that content's the same as well. And that's coming across all of the different strands of what we would consider marketing now, in terms of your traditional search, your AI search, your social media updates, and all of those things.
Yeah,
I think we always keep coming back to that, don't we?
Yes, and as humans, this always happens. We flip flop from one extreme to another, and there's that natural divide now of using AI for. We're going to slipping really into an AI conversation now, which is great. But using AI for workflows, agents, all of the things that AI is amazing at. And then right on the other extreme, we're craving human contact. So we're seeing more people going to real world events now. We're seeing more people craving that trust and authenticity and wanting to have community-based conversations and engagement online. And I think one of the things that's in the Marketing Impact blog this month is around the fact that Meta are investing more in groups, and they've actually they've got their own app now, and that is definitely an area to watch. They're looking at Reddit, they're looking at the online forums and going, actually, this is a place we need to invest, because people don't want to spend all of their time on technology platforms and just communicate with brands or non-human based entities.
Yeah,
it's interesting.
And it is, and I think there is that definite shift, isn't there? And there was something that I was reading an article on, and then it kind of sparked a couple of different thoughts in terms of AI and community and those kinds of things. And I'd be curious, and obviously we could never do this, but I'd be curious to see if we had the AI access that we have now, and we were using AI in the same way now as we were during COVID, when we were forced separation, would it look different, and would it be any different? And I think, the online groups, the online threads, the online communities, I think is a really, it's almost kind of like that perfect happy medium, in that we're craving the human contact, we're craving that community part of it. There are, whilst we are returning to real world events, I don't think we'll ever get back to where we were pre-COVID. And I think so much has moved online in terms of that community aspect now. But whilst there is still a thirst for real life, and that's where my heart lies anyway, there is that thirst for real life. I don't think we'll ever go back to pre-COVID levels. I think it's highly unlikely that we ever will. Never say never. I think it's highly unlikely that we'll ever go back there. But with and obviously Meta taking this step in terms of creating Forum, the new app, and what we've seen from others Instagram are doing more and more around community chats, all those kinds of things. I think what's really interesting is that's kind of still providing that community and that conversation and that connection, but in an online world. So it's almost that perfect middle ground, isn't it, between the two?
Yeah, and there's more research going on at the moment to see how different generations are using humans versus AI differently when it comes to online communications. So you've got apps like Talkie, for example. You've got lots of work and research going on in the mental health arena. Are there online therapists, etc., AI agents that are therapists? So there is a lot of work, and you're going to see more of that kind of stuff coming through, and it's just getting better. The conversations are better. You don't have the bias. You don't have you have that pushback like a therapist should, rather than just mimicking a bias of the person that's doing the prompts, which has been an issue in the past. But I think it's interesting to see which generations are responding differently to AI friends, therapists, etc., versus human. And I'm definitely seeing the younger ones, very young ones, are going to AI because it's easy. You're not getting pushback the way you get with humans, but they're getting bored of that quite early on. By 16 onwards, you've got that thirst for human contact. And there's a little bit more research going on around once someone gets out of school, the need for more online real human content becomes more prevalent, because I mean, we all work from home or in an office that's quite small. We generally do, you and I, Amy. And I forget sometimes that my kids, 8:30 to 4, are in a school environment where they are talking to lots of people and they're constantly talking to humans. So actually, when they are at home and they want to be in front of a screen, that's different. Whereas I'm very much searching for that real world connection after I've been working all day in AI. So yeah, there's more work to be done in that area, but it's fascinating to see how different generations are responding to the different AI tools in different ways.
Yeah, and I think what's interesting as part of that as well is that there's an older generation who are turning to them as therapists. Because they, it might be something that they maybe don't have the connection to talk to somebody about it face to face, or they don't want to talk to somebody about it face to face. So they are, and I was really surprised by the number of people who I speak to who use chat almost like a therapist, and I was really quite surprised by how many people do that. But it's kind of that evolution, isn't it? We are seeing it change, and we are seeing it evolve. And one of the things we always talk about in this, in this kind of slot is how much it's changing and how quickly it changes. But the thing that for me that always remains consistent in that is that we still have that thirst for authenticity. We still have that thirst for somebody that we feel we can trust, and we still crave that connection of some degree. But in terms of your marketing strategy, how does that play out within that, do you think? What do you need to be thinking about with that?
I love the fact that this hasn't changed, but it really is about finding your tribe, like working out where your communities are, thinking about how you can engage them. And a perfect example that I had was an event I went to last week called Groundswell. It's a festival style agricultural event, purely talking about all of the technology innovations, agricultural innovations that are around at the moment in regenerative farming. So it's very technical, very business to business orientated conference, you could say, but highly niched, and called it a festival. And the wonderful thing about festivals that we're seeing nowadays as business events is that people want to be there. It's framing the conversation around making connections in a different way, and then you get everyone jumping up and down and having a dance at the end, and you're really forming lovely relationships with people that could go on to being working partnerships, through understanding who they are as humans, their characters, their personalities. Obviously, the football was on as well. It was last Thursday. And you're also understanding the business relationship. And it almost goes back to when salespeople used to have, a business meeting on a golf course. That's so traditional. I'm glad that's broken down a little bit, obviously, but there is something really key about spending quality time with someone in a scenario where there's a bit of work and there's a bit of play. So you're actually responding emotionally to a partnership or potential working relationship as well as logically.
Yeah. And I think from a strategic perspective, it's really about understanding your audience and what they need, isn't it? And from, within a sector, within an industry, I'm still very much a believer that people do business with people. Yes, we might prefer a certain brand, or we might prefer a certain service over another one, but fundamentally we still do business with people, and that's where that connection comes from. And as is proven, if somebody moves companies, very often customers go with them because they have that trust and they have that knowledge and they have that relationship with them. So it's still really, really important in that kind of online world, really, isn't it? I guess that's part of it. That we still need that connection. And I would say I have online relationships with people. That sounds really bad, doesn't it? Not in that way, but I have relationships with people I've met online in a business sense, who I may never meet, but I have, I've referred them. I've said, I've let people know, I know somebody who does this. They may be able to help you. And I've never actually met them in real life, but the conversations that we've still had online can still help to build that feeling of connection. I don't think it's ever going to be as good as face to face, but there is a halfway house there, isn't there?
There is, and this is why online influencers are so important, and why that whole industry has been incredible and will keep growing, I'm sure, far more from influencers into creators, etc. Because who you choose to align with and who you choose to be your brand ambassador, your front of house for your brand, really says who your brand's, or what your brand's character is, and why you should align with a brand emotionally as well as logically. So just if you're wondering whether the influencer trend is going to carry on, I would absolutely say that it is not a trend and it's here to stay, because it's what we've always had. Understanding who the people are behind the brand, whether they're paid employees or if they're paid sort of ambassadors, external ambassadors, that's something that's not going to go away anytime soon.
Yeah, and I know that there are several brands that I follow who I would say I am connected to, and it's that they are influencer type brands, where I definitely feel that connection to them. I've never met them. I probably never will meet them, but you trust them, don't you? And you trust that influence, and you trust their opinion to some degree. Now, you can argue all day whether that's right or whether that's wrong, and whether that's genuine or whether it's fake, depending on what they are on getting paid for. However, what I would also say is that I think we're very discerning, and I think we're becoming more so as an audience. And like we were saying about with the England match, if it feels forced, it's going to come across. I'm going to get that message that actually you're really not that bothered. I'm going to get that feeling about it. I'm going to get that feeling that it feels forced. Even if I'm a fan of yours, I'm still going to get that feeling. If you've never mentioned it before and all of a sudden you're jumping all over it, that's going to come across as that. And that's essentially what good marketing is, isn't it? Is being able to understand what your audience wants from you and when they want it. But also, and I think this is the interesting bit, and this is the talent, I think, with marketers, is that we have to be able to plan for that, don't we? It's almost like trying to plan for those real life conversations and trying to figure out what that might look like in the future. That's what we need from a creativity, and that's where the talent comes in marketing, isn't it?
Yes, you absolutely need to plan, but also plan to pivot if you have to. So it's two sides, isn't it? You can have a wonderful quarterly plan, or you could get whatever your chosen AI tool is to create a whole load of social media for the next and a great schedule for the next 6 months. But actually it needs the humans to look and go, oh, something has changed. It might be geopolitical, it might be sport related, whatever it is. You've always, as marketeers, got to be able to plan to pivot, so you can have a plan B, you can change and you can adapt as your audience is changing and adapting. Because I mean, there are plenty of things, like you may have a brand ambassador who has done something naughty that you didn't know about, and you've got to change. You've got it could be that geopolitical landscape at the moment is volatile. There are lots of different reasons why things can change. And something could have happened with the FIFA World Cup that we may not have been able to plan for. So So there's definitely not a schedule and leave type environment, I would say, at the moment.
Yeah, and I think that obviously does have an impact. And I know this is something that we kind of refer to in the marketing impact blog is, you know, dare we mention the C word? Is it too early to mention the C word as we're going into a heat wave? Can we talk about Christmas?
Yeah.
But that's the thing, isn't it? Is it's, you know, it's the middle of the summer. We're all in this heat wave, but we still need to be thinking about Halloween and autumn, depending obviously on what kind of business you are, but the autumn trends or autumn season and Halloween and then Christmas, because it will be here really quickly, but two, we see it a lot, don't we, in terms of companies who just plan too late. They leave it too late. They leave it until, you know, October, November, where they've missed it. And particularly with AI search and with search overviews and AI overviews and those kinds of things, we need that to be out there soon so that it picks it up and takes us up and uses it as and when we need it to.
Yeah. And this has been a really interesting year looking at consumer behavior and trying to judge how people are going to react. So, I mean, we talked earlier, Amy, about the fact that people are maybe spending more per head at festivals this year in the UK. That is probably there's a direct correlation between that and the fact that people in the UK are spending less per head on international holidays because they're not sure about what's going to happen to fuel prices and da la la. So you can see that there are shifts in the industry that we may not have been able to predict 6-9 months ago. And what are the similar things when it comes to Christmas? So if you take tourism, could it be that people didn't plan a summer holiday, so there's going to be a big uptick at Christmas and more people are going to be away at Christmas, or want more experiential based presents at Christmas? Or have they had loads of fun festival time in the summer and they need something sort of cuddly and cushiony at Christmas instead?
Yeah,
you know, it's one of those wonderful things about marketing, is trying to predict how humans are going to react.
Yeah, and obviously there is an art to it to some degree, and there is also, and I think this is the thing which AI doesn't have, is that instinct that we kind of have. Now, I'm not saying, and I would never say that every single instinct or idea that you have is a good one, because we know that isn't the case, but building that in and thinking about, well, this is what it could look like, this is what it should look like, this is what we need it to look like, and when we need that to be. You know, there's no point in talking about Christmas on the 1st of December. It's too late. It's, you know, we need that plan, and we need to be thinking ahead in that way. But also, what that also means, of course, is that we need to be looking at the data that we've got. So looking at the analytics, looking at those, looking at last year, looking at the comparisons, looking at what's happening within the industry, looking at trend shifts. So last year we were a large Christmas type buying event, really, at the NEC, and the guys opposite us were selling pistachio. You can make your own pistachio chocolate bars, you know, so the pistachio, the Dubai chocolate, and they were selling the molds and the chocolate and the pistachio layer and all those kinds of things. I genuinely don't see that being around for years and years. Yeah, it's a trend and it works, and there is, you know, but capitalize on it while you can. But it isn't going to be here forever and ever. But we need to be thinking about the data and what that looks like, and then combining that with what we see as the current trends. Let's face it, if England win the World Cup, and it does happen to come home, that will affect buying for the rest of the year in terms of the sorts of gifts, the commemorative gifts, the personalization gifts. It will affect what gets bought at Christmas. I'm absolutely certain of it. And there'll be a lot around, you know, 1966 and 2026. And my brother will be ecstatic. He was born in 1966 and he would celebrate his 60th with a World Cup win. And it's his birthday on Tuesday. He's actually 60 tomorrow. So, you know, I'm sure there would be massive celebrations from that point of view. But there will be a lot around that you couldn't predict before. But that's where we need to be thinking about, what does the trends tell us? What is the data? How do we back that up with what we think is going to happen as marketers? And there's been a lot of changes in terms of analytics and data that we can access, hasn't there? So we need to be thinking about what that looks like.
we have got access to so much data now, and anything from the traditional tools like Screaming Frog through to the AI tools that are integrated into all of the other analytics. So there is so much we can get. And I love what you're saying, because it's thinking about marketing from that strategic level, which often we get sucked into the delivery of social media posts and the delivery of blogs and, all of the marketing services type content. And actually now at this point, 6th of July, or whenever you're listening to this, 6th of July, this is the time to be thinking, do I need to be in those strategic conversations to talk about how a product can be positioned for Halloween and Christmas, for example? What do we need to think about in terms of packaging? It's much more than just its product, packaging, place. All of the P's, many more than 4. All the P's. Think about all of them now, because actually the promotion bit is going to be is a secondary output from those strategic conversations. So think about how you can put yourself in the right conversations for right now in the year, and train your other teams, train your senior leadership team to be thinking about pivoting as well here and there to really optimize service and product sales for the second half.
Yeah, and I think that's part of the skill, isn't it, as marketers, is it's being able to say, this is the plan, but if that plan needs to change, nobody wants to change the plan, nobody wants to change everything, but sometimes it's small tweaks, sometimes it's a bigger change, and actually that can be quite gutsy to say, we have to do this. I always think back to the KFC situation. So a few years ago, I'm sure you remember, they pivoted their marketing campaign to FCK on the bucket because they had no chicken. So KFC, massive logistics problem. They ran out of chicken. It wasn't actually their fault. It was their logistics that were the fault, and that was outsourced to a third party. I won't name names, but their marketing agency said to them, selling chicken isn't working because you've got no chicken to sell. So we've got to change this and we've got to bring it back. And it was an incredibly successful campaign for them, where they changed the KFC to FCK on the their iconic buckets and those kinds of things. But they had to still be talking about it, and it was how they talked about it and how they changed it. And I always think about that in terms of that, that perfect pivot, if you like, because it worked really well for them. But you do have to be aware of those things, and kind of, I always think of it like a really good driver is potentially aware of the hazards that are up ahead. You're always thinking, you're not looking at the road in front of your vehicle, you're looking at the junction coming up, the small child running in the playground. You're looking at all of those potential hazards. So it's being aware of what might happen, but also having confidence in your plan, but with the knowledge that if we have to change it, then this is how we can change it. But we've based it now on the best possible data that we've got in the analytics and that combination of creativity that goes with it.
And that creativity, I'm just going to interrupt you a little bit there, Amy, just because if we're thinking about Christmas trends, the brands that did really well last year are the ones that reduced their AI usage in the creative outputs of the Christmas messaging. So, and that's something we're going to see as we go on the next couple of Christmases, I think. So use AI for your workflows, use it for your data analytics, all of that kind of stuff. But actually, I think the brands that are going to do really well at Christmas and in the run up to Christmas are the ones that are going to have had a local artisan filmmaker doing a piece. They're the ones that are really thinking about how they can get people involved and talk about who the people are that have helped create that piece of creative output. So who's the filmmaker? What's their background? Who are the actors? Are they startups? All of that kind of stuff, because people are desperate to learn about more humans. So it's, as a marketeer, again, it's that combination, thinking about how you can coexist and work really effectively between AI technologies and human brains.
Okay. I'm going to put you a little bit on the spot now, just as a roundup. But if there was kind of one thing that you could take away from all the changes and the things that have been happening in the last month or so, what would you say that needs to be?
Oh, I think one of the things that yes, okay, yeah, I love being on the spot. I will go. What I think is very interesting is that over the last probably 10 years, we've really looked at the analytics of desktop users and mobile users. This is going to sound a little dry, but bear with me. We've seen desktop users go down on most websites and mobile go up. And there's been very little change in user journey between the two, but perhaps people on desktop are having a higher intent or a longer user journey on websites than mobile. But it's been many more for B2C brands, and it's been sort of a 60-40 desktop mobile generally as a benchmark for B2B. What we're seeing with the introduction of AI into more people's searches and their search journeys is that the people that are on mobile devices and they're using AI previews and etc., they are getting everything that they need. They're getting served all the content that they need within the search parameters. They're not clicking through onto websites, whereas the people that are doing trad search or other searches, on desktops have a much higher click-through rate, and they're doing something more interesting with your brand and your brand architecture. So I think that's a really interesting one, because you've again got to think in two ways. You've got to think, how are desktop users going to be using my brand, my website? How also can I make sure I've got that summary content, FAQs, whatever that might be, that can be served up to AI overviews, previews, so people don't need to go onto the website at all. And there's a kind of letting go process that marketeers need to be doing at the moment for your mobile audiences, and go, I'm just not going to get them on my website. I'm going to see the views going down. I need to explain that to my senior leadership team and say why they're going down. And that's okay, because AI is going back up. Have a look at those referrals, not referrals. Look at the referrals from AI going down, but where are you being seen actually? And that's okay. It's just in a different part of the ecosystem online. So I think that's something that we need to keep an eye on in the next couple of months, but that's a major shift.
Yeah, it's a shift in the behavior of how we access information, isn't it? Which we're seeing more and more that's actually the impact that AI is having on the majority of users. Is it's how we find information and how we absorb it to some degree as well. Because 6 months ago I would have probably ignored the first bit of the Google search that came up. Now I'm taking it as gospel and I'm looking at it. So you need to be able to appear in there for that quick. I was kind of like thinking, quick down and dirty information that I need now. But that actually we know that desktops are still being used very much for that more in-depth search, research-based type, rather than that quick fix of information that we might need on the go. So there is that shift in behaviour, and who knows what that shift looks like, but it's definitely impacted how we access information. The same way Google did when Google first came around. It changed the way that we absorbed information and the way that we discovered things. It's having that impact again, I think, which is absolutely true.
Yeah, and I was just to say, last month, German courts ruled that Google can be found liable for AI overview results. So, and that's something that's going to keep going. So there's going to be far more pressure from the search engines to deliver excellent AI overviews and have preference for preferred sites, really well-known sources. So your SEO, GEO, AEO, etc. needs to be absolutely on point over the next 3 or 4 months. That's really a thing to focus on.
Yeah, which we are running a free webinar on it, which will be available to book through the website soon. So thank you for that. It's just given me a bit of a reminder in terms of how to appear in AI searches. We've got a free webinar coming up on that at the start of August. The start of August, that'll be available to book on soon, so keep your eyes open for that. So that's it for today. Thank you very much for joining me, Edwina. It's been lovely to have you. You can check out all of the information and the full blog on our website now, so feel free to go to digitalb.co.uk to see all of it in our resources section, and we will be back in about a month for our next live. We'll be talking about everything that's happening now, and I'm sure football will be mentioned again then as well, or hopefully, fingers crossed, it will, as where we are the victors of the World Cup, and the impact that's had on people's marketing, but we will find out. So goodbye for now, and enjoy the rest of your week.
Thanks so much, Amy. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.